If you enjoy a good yarn, a dash of murder, and a clue or two to unravel, then step into the shadows with Mystery in the Dark, where every episode is a whodunit waiting to be solved. Enjoy and please subscribe the return of Inspector M.C. Dowell. Inspector Liam McDowell stepped off the small ferry onto the rugged shores of Tory Island, the icy Atlantic wind biting through his coat. The trip had been rough, the waves unforgiving, and the rain relentless. He hadn't wanted to come back to Ireland, but duty dictated otherwise. His uncle, his last living relative, was dead, and so here he was, standing on a place he barely remembered, yet could never truly forget. Memories from his childhood flickered in his mind, his parents' laughter, their warm embrace, and then the explosion that had ripped them away from him. That one moment had defined his life. His parents had been on their first holiday alone in Belfast when the IRA bomb killed them. He was 6 years old when it happened, and after that he was sent across the world to live with family friends in Australia. Ireland had become a distant, painful memory, and now he found himself back on its soil well, on a lonely island off its coast. The townspeople were aware of M.C. Dowell even before he set foot on Tory Island. His uncle, who had lived there his whole life, had taken great pride in mentioning his nephew's stellar rise in the Sydney police force. He often spoke of how proud he was to see his sister's son doing so well, a sentiment that had travelled across the island, making M.C. Dowell's return an event of quiet anticipation. The ferry ride had been long and choppy, and McDowell found himself in conversation with two passengers along the way. The first was an elderly man, Seamus O'Dwyer, with deep wrinkles and a knowing look in his eyes. "It's not often we get outsiders coming to stay on Tory," Seamus said, watching McDowell carefully. "Especially not ones who look like they don't want to be here." M.C. Dowell smirked, appreciating the old man's candor. "Just here to settle my uncle's affairs," he replied. "Won't be staying long." Seamus nodded slowly, as if he had heard this kind of statement before. Well, the island has a way of holding on to people, whether they like it or not." M.C. Dowell said nothing, choosing instead to stare out at the grey waves. Later, a young woman named Brid Gallagher sat beside him, her red hair tucked under a woolen cap. "You're M.C. Dowell, aren't you?" she asked, her tone both curious and cautious. M.C. Dowell turned to her, taken aback. "And how do you know that?" Brid gave a small shrug. "News travels fast here. Everyone knows about Liam McDowell's return." She hesitated before adding, "Your uncle was well liked. People will want to know why you left and why you've come back." M.C. Dowell exhaled through his nose. "Like I told Seamus, I won't be here long." Brid tilted her head, studying him. "We'll see about that." The Tory Island Hotel was small but welcoming, though its isolation felt stifling. The locals were a quiet bunch, curious about the outsider but keeping their distance. M.C. Dowell wasn't here to make friends. He planned to settle his uncle's affairs and leave as soon as possible. But fate had other plans. 2 days after M.C. Dowell's arrival, the island was shaken by a grim discovery. A young boy's body had washed up in the cove near the western cliffs. He was no more than 10, his lifeless form tangled in seaweed, his face pale against the dark rocks. The body was discovered by Padraig Sweeney, a local lobster fisherman in his late 50s. Padraig was a weathered man with calloused hands and a quiet demeanor, known for his early morning trips out to sea. He had been checking his lobster traps when he noticed something unusual washed up near the rocks. As he approached, the grim reality of what he had found became clear. Shaken, Padraig wasted no time in alerting the authorities. He had known the boy, as everyone on the island did. His voice was tight with grief when he told Sergeant Keane He shouldn't have been out there alone, not that late. That afternoon, as MC Dowell sat nursing a whiskey at the hotel's small bar, the front door swung open, and Sergeant Donald Keene stepped inside, his uniform damp from the drizzle outside. His face was drawn, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Keene didn't hesitate. He walked straight to MC Dowell and pulled up a chair. "Inspector MC Dowell," he said, his voice tinged with urgency. "I need your help." MC Dowell glanced at the sergeant, then at his drink. "I'm not on duty, Sergeant." Keene sighed. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. A boy has been found dead on the western shore. Looks like drowning, but there are marks." MC Dowell set his glass down, his instincts kicking in despite himself. "Marks?" Keene nodded. "Bruising around the neck." MC Dowell exhaled slowly, then stood. "Show me the body." Dr. Moira Callahan, the island's only physician, met them in the small, dimly lit clinic. She was a woman in her mid-40s, with auburn hair streaked with gray and sharp green eyes that didn't shy away from the grim realities of her work. She pulled off her gloves and met MC Dowell's gaze with a quiet certainty. "Strangled," she said without preamble. "Bruising suggests strong hands, deliberate force. This wasn't an accident." She hesitated for a moment before adding, "And here's the rub. Gentlemen, there's no water in his lungs." MC Dowell studied the small, lifeless form laid out on the examination table. Seon Donnelly. A name that, up until now, had belonged to just another island boy. Now it was the center of a murder investigation. Dr. Callahan continued, her tone clinical but tinged with sorrow. "He's got a recent black eye, multiple contusions across his body likely from the sea, sand, and rocks. But those bruises on his naked." She shook her head. "Someone made sure he wasn't going to live. They were brutal, unforgiving." MC Dowell and Keene made their way to the small cottage on the east side of the island where Seon's mother, Aisling Donnelly, lived. The door was ajar, and the unmistakable stench of stale alcohol filled the air. They found Aisling slumped on the couch, her blonde hair disheveled, her eyes bloodshot. A near-empty bottle of whiskey sat on the table beside her. She barely stirred when MC Dowell cleared his throat. "Mrs. Donnelly," she groaned, rubbing her temple. "What? Who the hell?" MC Dowell stepped forward. "We're here about your son, Seon." Aisling blinked, her gaze unfocused. "Seon? He's with a friend, isn't he?" Kane's expression hardened. "No, Aisling, he's not. He was found this morning, near the western cliffs. I'm sorry, but he's gone." A long silence followed. Aisling's lips parted as though she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Then, her face crumpled, and she let out a strangled sob. No, that can't be." MC Dowell glanced around the cluttered room, then at the empty space on the wall where family photos should have been. "Where's your husband?" "Away," she choked out. "Works the North Sea pipeline. He's gone for months at a time." Keene exchanged a look with MC Dowell. "We need to ask you some questions, Aisling, about last night." She wiped her face with trembling hands. I didn't even know he was gone. Oh God, my boy, my baby." MC Dowell folded his arms. "Then, let's start there. When did you last see Seon?" "I don't know." After leaving Aisling Donnelly's home, MC Dowell and Keene walked back toward the station, the grim reality of the case weighing heavily upon them. By late evening, word had spread about Seon's death, and the islanders demanded answers. A town hall meeting was called in the old community center, a building that had once served as a church before being repurposed for gatherings. The mood was tense fear, anger, and grief mixed together, creating an air of unease. MC Dowell and Keene stood at the front of the room as murmurs filled the space. The fishermen, the shopkeepers, the teachers, and the elderly all whispered among themselves, exchanging worried glances. "This kind of thing doesn't happen here," a woman in the crowd spoke up, her voice shaking. "Who would do such a thing?" "That's what we're trying to find out," Keene responded. "We need any information about where Seon was last seen, anything unusual that might have happened yesterday evening." Eamon Boyle stood with his arms crossed, scowling. "We all know who you'll be looking at first. Outsiders, the ones that don't belong." MC Dowell narrowed his gaze. "No one is being accused yet, Boyle, but we'll follow the truth wherever it leads." Father Declan stepped forward, his expression solemn. "People are frightened. A child is dead. If there's something lurking among us, it needs to be brought to light." The tension in the room thickened. MC Dowell scanned the faces in the crowd. Some looked genuinely distraught, others nervous. He wasn't sure yet who had something to hide, but he was certain someone in that room knew more than they were letting on. After the meeting adjourned, the town spilled out into the night, their hushed voices carrying in the cold wind. MC Dowell and Keene exchanged glances. "We've stirred the hornet's nest," Keene muttered. MC Dowell nodded. "Good. That's when people start making mistakes." MC Dowell leaned against the bar of the Tory Inn. It had been a long day. "Then let's talk." Tess poured them both a drink, setting MC Dowell's glass down with a knowing smirk. The bar was empty, save for the low hum of the wind outside and the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards. "Well, Inspector, if you want the truth about this place, you're in the right spot." She leaned against the counter, swirling the amber liquid in her own glass. "But you already know that, don't you?" MC Dowell took a slow sip, the whiskey burning just enough to take the edge off the weight pressing on him. "I know there's more going on here than people are letting on, and I know that if anyone's got the full story, it's you." Tess chuckled, tipping her head in acknowledgement. "You're not wrong. I run this place single-handedly, and people talk more freely when they think I'm just pouring drinks. The thing is, on this island, folks don't forget things easily, and they sure as hell don't always tell the bye. Truth." MC Dowell set his glass down. "So, tell me, Tess, what's the word around here?" Tess exhaled, setting her own drink aside. "Oh, there's plenty of gossip about Seon's death. The island's divided. Like always, some reckon it was an outsider, someone who came in on one of the fishing boats. Others say it had to be one of our own, which means they're scared. And when people are scared, they start pointing fingers." MC Dowell nodded. "And who's at the top of the list?" Before Tess could respond, McDowell's phone buzzed in his pocket. "Sorry I must take this. It's a call from Australia." MC Dowell stepped outside, the wind howling as he answered. "Claire." Senior Sergeant Claire O'Neill's voice came through with her usual upbeat energy. "MC Dowell, you are still alive over there, or has some fairy queen claimed you?" MC Dowell smirked. "Still here, though I'm starting to think this island has other plans for me." Claire chuckled. "You always did attract trouble. I just wanted to check in, make sure you hadn't picked a fight with a priest yet." MC Dowell exhaled. "Funny you mention that. There's a priest on my list." "Of course there is," Claire said. "Stay sharp, MC Dowell." "I always do," he replied before ending the call. As he turned back toward the inn, Tess Jarrett, the landlord, was standing outside also smoking a cigarette, watching him with a knowing look. "That your girl back home?" she asked with a smirk. MC Dowell shook his head. just a friend. A good one." They both re-entered the inn, and Tess poured them both a drink. "Well, Inspector, shall I tell you what the locals are thinking?" She ticked them off on her fingers. "Eamon Boyle. You've already heard about his temper. He's got a mean streak. But would he kill a kid? That's the question." She took another sip before continuing. "Then there's Father O'Rourke. People say he's been acting odd, quieter than usual. And trust me, for a priest, that's saying something. Some reckon he knows something he isn't sharing." MC Dowell leaned in slightly. "And Siobhan Kearney?" Tess tilted her head. "She's an odd one. Smart, keeps to herself. Seon trusted her, that much is obvious. But she's been watching this whole thing unfold with that sharp little gaze of hers. I don't think she's guilty, but I do think she knows. More than she's telling." MC Dowell considered this. "What about Aisling Donnelly?" Tess sighed. "Aisling's drowning in her own grief and whiskey. She loved that boy. But she was a wreck even before he was taken from her. The islanders whisper that she might have been too drunk to notice something important that night. Some even wonder if someone took advantage of that." McDowell let the information settle between them for a moment. "So, if you had to place your bet, who do you think did it?" Tess let out a dry laugh. "I pour drinks, Inspector. I don't solve murders." She leaned in slightly. "But if I were you, I'd be looking at the people who don't want you looking at them." NC Dowell sat back, nodding. "That's usually a good place to start." MC Dowell returned to his uncle's cottage, exhausted but unable to rest. The wind howled through the cracks in the stone walls, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked ceaselessly. The rhythmic sound grated against his already frayed nerves. He sat at the worn wooden table, spreading out the notes he had taken throughout the day. He needed clarity, a way to organize the chaos. He grabbed a pencil and began to sketch out a timeline. 1. Afternoon Seon was last seen leaving school. 2. Early evening witnesses saw him near the docks, where he appeared nervous. 3. Nightfall, he was seen running toward the cliffs. 4. Late night, his body was found washed up in the bay. MC Dowell tapped the pencil against the table. What had scared Seon so much that he ran blindly toward danger? Who had been near the docks at the same time? He listed the people he needed to speak with again. Eamon Boyle the fisherman with a reputation for a short temper. Father Declan acting oddly lately, as if burdened by a secret. Siobhan Kearney, the teacher who had always looked out for Seon. Jin Loon the smuggler with ties to the island's darker dealings. Aisling Donnelly Seon's mother, unreliable, but possibly withholding something. MC Dowell leaned back, rubbing his eyes. The pieces were there, scattered and disconnected. He just needed to find the thread that wove them all together. Day 2 at dawn, MC Dowell met Keane at the Tory Inn, the scent of fried eggs and strong coffee greeting them as they took a table by the window. "We need to press Boyle first," MC Dowell said, stirring his coffee. "He was near the docks when Seon was last seen." Keane nodded. "Then, Father Declan. He's been acting strange lately." McDowell flipped open his notebook. Siobhan Kearney, too. She cared about the boy, maybe he confided in her. Keane sighed, pushing his plate aside. And Aisling Donnelly. She was too drunk to even notice her son was missing. Maybe she remembers something now. "Let's leave Mrs. Donnelly for now. I'm more interested in what Boyle has to say for himself." MC Dowell nodded, finishing his coffee. "Then, let's get to work." NC Dowell and Keane found Eamon Boyle mending his nets near the docks, the briny air thick with the smell of fish. He looked up as they approached, his face already set in a scowl. "You again," Boyle muttered, setting down his knife. "What now?" MC Dowell folded his arms. Father O'Rourke says Seon saw something here the night he went missing. A boat. Crates. Boyle snorted. That right? The father's got plenty to say, does he? Keene stepped closer. You're denying it? Boyle wiped his hands on his trousers. Damn right I am. I was here that night, unloading my usual haul. No secrets, no smuggling. The boy wasn't anywhere near me. MC Dowell watched him carefully. Then why did Seon think he saw something worth worrying about? Boyle's jaw twitched. Ask O'Rourke. He was always too interested in that boy. Maybe he's the one with something to hide. Kane's expression darkened. Careful what you're implying, Boyle. Boyle met his gaze, unflinching. I'm not implying anything, Sergeant. Just saying maybe you should be looking at the man who spent all his time whispering in the boy's ear. And while you're at it, maybe ask Siobhan Kearney what she's been hiding. She's got a past she doesn't like talking about. MC Dowell exchanged a glance with Keene. The case was getting murkier by the minute. Later that afternoon, MC Dowell and Keene found Aisling Donnelly in her sister's house, a modest, cluttered home that smelled of cigarette smoke and stewed cabbage. She was sober now, her bleary eyes more alert than the last time they had seen her, but her tone was defensive. I told you everything I know, she snapped, arms crossed over her chest. He was supposed to be home, but I just assumed he was with a friend. Her sister, a heavy-set woman with a weary expression, cut in. Aisling was beside herself when she found out, she insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. MC Dowell leaned forward. Aisling, is there anything at all that you haven't told us? She hesitated, glancing at her sister, then looking away. I heard him talking to someone outside the house the night before he went missing, she muttered. Didn't think much of it at the time, but now... Kane's eyes narrowed. Who was he talking to? Aisling took a slow drag from her cigarette before answering. I couldn't see, but I know one thing, it was a man, and after Seon came inside, he seemed off, quiet, jumpy. MC Dowell exchanged a glance with Keene. Do you have any idea who it could have been? Aisling exhaled, the smoke curling from her lips. If you ask me, you should be looking at Father Declan. That man's been acting odd for weeks now. Keene stiffened. What do you mean? She shrugged, but there was something calculated about it. Just that he's been different, edgy, and Seon spent time at the church. Maybe he saw something he shouldn't have. MC Dowell studied her, weighing her words. Was this genuine suspicion or a desperate attempt to shift the blame? We'll look into it, he said finally. If you remember anything else, you let us know. As they stepped outside, Keene exhaled sharply. Think she's hiding something? MC Dowell nodded. She's too eager to push suspicion elsewhere. But whether she's covering for herself or someone else, that's what we need to find out. Let's go and have a friendly chat. The Father Keene said the rectory was dimly lit, the scent of old wood and candle wax filling the small sitting room. Father Declan O'Rourke sat stiffly in an armchair, hands clasped in his lap, his face shadowed in the flickering light of the fireplace. You were close to Seon Donnelly, MC Dowell began, watching the priest's reaction carefully. Aisling mentioned he spent time at the church. Father O'Rourke sighed, rubbing his temples. Seon came to me often. He had questions, fears. Fears about what? Keene asked. The priest hesitated. He was troubled by something he saw, something he couldn't quite make sense of. MC Dowell leaned forward. And what was that? O'Rourke's gaze dropped to the floor. He mentioned a boat, late at night, near the docks. He said he saw men unloading some thing crates. He told me he thought it was wrong. Keene crossed his arms. And you didn't think to bring this to the authorities? O'Rourke shook his head. Seon was scared. He begged me not to say anything. I thought he was just a boy with an overactive imagination. McDowell's jaw tightened. And now, he's dead. The room was silent, except for the crackling fire. Father O'Rourke finally met M.C. Dowell's gaze. I should have listened to him. M.C. Dowell stood. If you're holding anything else back, now's the time to confess. O'Rourke exhaled slowly. I wish I had more to give you, Inspector, but I swear I told you everything I know. Keene and M.C. Dowell exchanged a glance. The priest was nervous, but was it guilt or something else? M.C. Dowell turned toward the door. We'll be in touch, Father. As they stepped into the night, Keene muttered, A boat. A shipment. N.C. Dowell nodded. Now we find out what Siobhan Kearney has to say. Siobhan Kearney sat in her small cottage. Her hands clasped tightly together as M.C. Dowell studied her. Her eyes were distant, haunted by something older than the present tragedy. I know what people say about me, she said quietly. That I let my sister die. M.C. Dowell remained silent, letting her speak. I was 12, she was 10. We were fishing off the rocks at Tram Bay, something we'd done 100 times before. She swallowed hard. A freak wave came out of nowhere, knocked her off her feet. I tried to grab her, but the tide was too strong. She was gone before I could do anything. She blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. My parents never forgave me. They never said it outright, but I saw it in their eyes. The blame, the disappointment. The town whispered, said I was reckless, careless. M.C. Dowell nodded. And Seon? Siobhan's lips trembled. He trusted me. He came to me because he knew I wouldn't dismiss him like the others did. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And now he's gone too. M.C. Dowell met her gaze. But this time, it wasn't an accident. Time to meet Tommy Gallagher. M.C. Dowell said to Keene, arriving at Gallagher's. The inspector and constable climbed the narrow, windswept path to Tommy Red Gallagher's remote hut. The door to the hut was ajar, and both men could clearly see inside, and the outline of Gallagher sitting by his meager fire. Gallagher turned in his chair and addressed the men. What do you want? His voice was rough, unused. M.C. Dowell stepped forward. We need to ask you about Seon Donnelly. Gallagher stiffened. I didn't touch the boy. No one's saying you did, Keene interjected. But we know he was near your place before he died. I can't sleep, Gallagher admitted, his voice raw. The faces of the people I hurt, the ones I killed, they visit me every night. M.C. Dowell sat across from him. That why you live out here? Away from everyone? Gallagher nodded, staring into the fire. My wife left years ago. Couldn't take the nightmares, the guilt that weighed on me. I couldn't be the man she needed, not after what I'd done. M.C. Dowell remained silent, letting the confession unfold. I don't belong in the village, Gallagher continued. I don't belong anywhere. When I see them, the people I grew up with, I see their fear, their hatred. They don't say it, but I know they wonder if I'd do it again. Would you? M.C. Dowell asked quietly. Gallagher exhaled sharply. No, but that doesn't change what I've done. Gallagher exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. He was snooping around here a few nights ago. I caught him looking in my windows, asked what the hell he was doing. N.C. Dowell's brow furrowed. And what did he say? Gallagher hesitated, then said, he asked about the past, about things that should have been left buried. Then, as if the conversation had never happened, Gallagher stood up, walked to the door of the hut, and shut it. The two men stood in silence, looking at the closed door, and M.C. Dowell said that man is drowning in regret. I just wondering for what exactly. MC Dowell left Constable Keene for the evening, but for some reason he decided to pay Sobane another call instinct. Maybe, who knows, as he pulled up outside Siobhan Kearney's cottage, immediately noticing something out of place, a van that certainly hadn't been there when he and Constable Keene had last visited. It would have been impossible to miss the multicolored vehicle, its paintwork a chaotic swirl of blues, greens, and oranges, like something straight out of a festival. Curious, he parked his own car to the side of the lane and approached. Peering through the open passenger window, he noted camping equipment stacked haphazardly inside sleeping bags, a battered kettle, and a collection of mismatched hiking boots. Before he could take in more, the crunch of gravel behind him caught his attention. Turning, MC Dowell found himself face to face with a striking young woman, mid-20s at most, her sun-kissed skin and wild chestnut hair suggesting she spent more time outdoors than in. Her sharp green eyes studied him before breaking into a relieved smile. "Oh, thank God you're here. I was just about to head into town and report to Constable Keene." MC Dowell introduced himself, his curiosity piqued. "Inspector McDowell. And you are?" "Kate," she answered, brushing a stray curl from her face. "Sorry, I'm rambling, long drive, no coffee. What I'm trying to say is, we just got back from my girlfriend's monthly day without tech camp, you know, getting in touch with nature, leaving all the so-called devil devices behind." She let out a small laugh. "Anyway, that's why we had no clue about, well, what happened to that poor boy." MC Dowell watched as she shifted on her feet, clearly eager to get to her point. "I came to say that Siobhan couldn't have had anything to do with it. That night, the three of us were here, playing gin rummy till at least 3 a.m., and I'll be honest with you, Inspector, there were more than a few bottles of wine involved. She was with us the whole time." She gave him a knowing smile. "So, unless she mastered teleportation, you might want to cross her off your list." MC Dowell studied her for a moment before nodding. "Good to know. Let's have a chat inside." Kate grinned. "Sure. But fair warning, we haven't unpacked yet, and Sue, my girlfriend, will probably want to give you an earful about technology ruining modern society." MC Dowell sighed. "Sounds like my kind of evening." Kate laughed, motioning him toward the house. The sky hung low and gray over the Atlantic, the wind whipping in strong gusts as MC Dowell walked the narrow path along the cliff's edge. This was the place where he and Constable Keene had determined Seon Donnelly's body had been thrown from far enough that the fall would have left him broken, but the tide had carried him further before finally washing him up on the rocky cove below. McDowell stopped, scanning the rugged landscape. The cliffs were sheer, jagged walls of rock, treacherous even for someone careful. If the boy had been conscious when he went over, he wouldn't have stood a chance. As he stood there, absorbing the weight of the crime, the crunch of gravel behind him made him turn. A man in a battered brown jacket and woolen cap was making his way up from the path leading to the lower headland, binoculars hanging from his neck. MC Dowell recognized him from the petrol station near the docks. Dan Loughlin, one of the island's long-time residents, a known birder who spent more time watching seabirds than filling petrol tanks. "Inspector," Loughlin greeted, giving him a wary nod. MC Dowell offered a brief nod in return. "Didn't expect to see anyone else up here this late." Loughlin shrugged, tapping the binoculars hanging against his chest. "Gannets are nesting this time of year, and I prefer birds to people most days." He hesitated, then looked out toward the sea. "Saw you heading this way and figured I should talk to you." MC Dowell raised a brow. "About?" "The Donnelly boy," Loughlin said, his expression tightening. "Saw him up here a few days before it happened." MC Dowell's interest sharpened instantly. What was he doing? Lachlan exhaled, rubbing a gloved hand across his mouth. That's the thing. It was odd. A boy his age, out here, alone? Not exactly the place to be wandering, especially that close to the cliffs. When I spotted him, I called out, asked if he was all right. He said he was just out for a beer. Walk? MC Dowell folded his arms. And you believed him? Lachlan shook his head. Not for a second. The kid looked nervous, like he wasn't supposed to be there. And he wasn't just out for a casual stroll. His jeans were ripped, like he'd taken a fall. And from the way he was holding his face, I'd say he was nursing a right nasty shiner. MC Dowell felt something shift in his gut. A black eye? Aye, Lachlan confirmed. Didn't want to tell me how he got it, either. Just muttered something about tripping, but I wasn't buying it. Thought maybe he'd been in a scrap with another kid, but now a sack. He trailed off, rubbing at the stubble on his chin. Now I'm thinking I should have pressed him harder. MC Dowell's mind was already running through the implications. Seon had been in trouble before he died. Someone had roughed him up, and he had come to these cliffs for a reason. Anything else stand out? MC Dowell asked. Lachlan shook his head. Not much, just that he seemed on edge. Kept looking over his shoulder like he thought someone was following him. MC Dowell let that sit for a moment, before nodding. Thanks for telling me, Lachlan. The man let out a heavy breath. A kid that age doesn't end up dead on his own, Inspector. Someone knows what happened to him. MC Dowell looked back over the cliff's edge, the waves crashing below. Yeah, he said quietly. Someone does. As the sun dipped below the horizon, McDowell sat alone outside his uncle's cottage. The briny air sharp against his skin. The weight of the case hung heavy on him. Too many questions, too many loose ends. He closed his eyes and let the sound of the waves carry him back to another time, a boy of 6. Perched on the rocky shore beside his father's strong hands guiding his own as they cast their lines into the rolling sea, the scent of salt and fish, the deep, comforting timbre of his father's voice. You have to be patient. Liam, his father had said, the ocean doesn't give up its secrets easily. Neither, it seemed, did Tory Island. MC Dowell exhaled, rubbing his hands together for warmth. Tomorrow, they'd press harder. Someone on this island knew what had happened to Seon Donnelly. Day 3, early next day, both men sat at the station. Keane ran a hand through his damp hair. So, what's your gut telling you? MC Dowell stared into his cup of coffee before speaking. Boyle's lying, his temper's too quick, too defensive. And Father Declan, there's something he's holding back. Keane sighed, swirling his drink. And Siobhan Kearney? She out of the picture, her alibi is solid. Keane nodded. And Tommy Gallagher? MC Dowell leaned forward. He's afraid of something. But I'm leaning to the past, and not that of the murder of a 10-year-old boy. Keane took a slow sip of his drink and said, Probably not the time. But I'm grateful you are here. This is not something I would like to go through alone. Just then the phone rang. It was Dr. Callahan. Inspector, I had another look at the boy's fingernails. There was something under them fibers, dark purple wool, like from a sweater. I will need a comparison sample, but I thought you would perhaps guess where to find that. MC Dowell's stomach twisted. Who on this island wears a wool sweater often? Keane looked up. Father O'Rourke. MC Dowell sat across from Father Declan O'Rourke in the dimly lit rectory. The priest's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of the wooden table. His once pristine clerical collar was slightly askew, and dark circles hung beneath his eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days or maybe longer. MC Dowell folded his arms. We found fibers under Sayan's nail, dark purple wool. It matches the sweater you wear nearly every day. O'Rourke exhaled heavily, his gaze dropping to the tabletop. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he whispered. Keen, standing by the door, leaned in. Then tell us exactly what did. The priest rubbed his hands together, his fingers fidgeting as though he was desperate to hold on to something solid. Eamon Boyle, he muttered. He's the reason this all started. MC Dowell raised an eyebrow. Boyle? How's he involved? O'Rourke swallowed hard. He was blackmailing me. Silence stretched between them. MC Dowell and Keen exchanged a glance before MC Dowell pressed, blackmailing you over what? The priest let out a bitter chuckle. My own damn sins. My love of the horses. I gambled away more money than I care to admit. And Boyle, well, let's just say he has eyes everywhere. His brother's boy, an accountant on the mainland, got curious when he saw some discrepancies in the church's banking records. Substantial withdrawals from the church maintenance fund. He mentioned it in passing to Boyle, and Boyle put the pieces together. Keen scoffed. You were skimming church funds to feed a gambling habit? O'Rourke flinched at the bluntness, but nodded. I was always going to pay it back, he said weakly. But Boyle saw an opportunity. He told me to keep the boy out of his business. Sayon had been snooping, asking questions about the cigarettes Boyle's been smuggling in with his fishing boat. N.C. Dowell leaned forward, his voice sharp. And you did as he asked? O'Rourke nodded, misery etched into his features. Sayan came to the church that night. He was scared, but not for himself, for the island. He kept saying how wrong it was, how he was going to tell someone. I tried to convince him to leave it alone, to let it go. He swallowed. But the boy was stubborn. He told me Boyle had already threatened him, hit him, gave him that black eye. MC Dowell's jaw tightened. So, he came to you for help. The priest let out a shuddering breath, and I failed him. He looked up, his eyes wet with unshed tears. I lost my temper, not at him, but at Boyle, at the situation, at myself, the pressure of the blackmail. The boy's righteous determination at all made me snap. I grabbed his arm, trying to make him listen, to make him see reason. He pulled away, but I held on, and then his voice cracked. Then he slipped. Keen frowned. Slipped? So you grab him by the throat? O'Rourke nodded frantically. I swear I didn't mean to hurt him. I grabbed him, trying to stop him from running off. Next, he wasn't moving. MC Dowell's voice was ice. So, you panicked. The priest buried his face in his hands. I didn't know what to do. I checked for a pulse, but I couldn't find one. I thought he was gone. And then, God help me. I knew Boyle would come after me if this got out. I dragged the boy's body to the cliffs. I thought the sea would take him. I thought... His voice wavered. I thought I could make it look like an accident. Kane's expression darkened. Except the tide brought him right back. MC Dowell's fists clenched. You covered for Boyle. You let Sion die, all because you were afraid of your own secrets being exposed. O'Rourke looked up at them, his face crumbling. I never wanted this. I never meant... MC Dowell cut him off, his voice stone. But it happened. And now you'll answer for it. Kane stepped forward, pulling out the handcuffs. Father Declan O'Rourke, you are under arrest for the murder of Sion Donnelly. The priest didn't resist. As the cuffs clicked around his wrists, he only whispered, God forgive me. As they led him out of the rectory, the storm outside raged on, the wind howling through the cracks in the old stone walls. But nothing could drown out the weight of O'Rourke's confession or the stain it left on Tory Island. That night, McDowell and Keene sat in the warmth of M.C. Dowell's uncle's cottage, the fire crackling in the hearth, the weight of the case finally easing. Keene nursed a whiskey, staring into the flames. "Well," Keene muttered, swirling his glass. "That was one hell of a confession." M.C. Dowell leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Yeah, and it's not even over." Keene exhaled. "Boyle's not going to go quietly." M.C. Dowell nodded. "No, he won't. But he's your next problem because day after tomorrow, I'm heading home." Keene looked at M.C. Dowell and smiled briefly. "Thanks for your help, Liam." M.C. Dowell tipped his glass in response. The fire flickered, casting long shadows on the walls. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. The end. Epilogue the next morning. Before the island could fully absorb the arrest of Father O'Rourke, another shock rippled through the community. Tommy Red Gallagher was found hanging from a beam in his small hut, the sea wind rattling through the open doorway. A single note was left on the table: "I have carried the weight of my past for too long." The boy didn't deserve to die, and neither did the others. I stood by. I knew about Boyle. I watched the beating, and I knew about Father O'Rourke's gambling, and I did nothing. That makes me just as guilty. Tell the boy's mother, I'm sorry. I failed him, just as I failed so many before. The end